Today, we are diving into the story of one of history's absolute master strategists, a rebel who looked the mightiest empire of his time in the eye and decided to build his own kingdom from the ground up. We're talking about the legend, the Maratha king Chhatrapati Shivaji. And that's really the core question of his whole life, isn't it? In an era that was totally dominated by these massive, sprawling empires, how on earth did one man, with just a small group of followers, manage to carve out his own sovereign state? It's the ultimate David versus Goliath story, but, with real-world empires hanging in the balance. So our guide for this incredible story comes straight from the pages of this historical biography. It's what lays out all the events, the brilliant strategies, and just the sheer nerve of a man who would literally change the map of India. So let's start where his story does, in a world of pure chaos. To really understand a rebel like Shivaji, you first have to get a feel for the world that made him. And 17th century India? Well, it was a landscape of constant conflict, huge ambitions, and power changing hands all the time. It was the kind of place where empires would clash and new leaders were forged in fire. The political map back then was like a giant chessboard. Up north, you had the colossal Mughal Empire, which cast this long, powerful shadow over everything. But down here in the rugged Deccan Plateau, it was a constant power struggle between two major rival sultanates, Bijapur and Golconda. And right into this crucible of warfare, in 1630, Shivaji was born. This was a world where to survive, you had to be strong, you had to be cunning, and you had to have unshakable loyalty. Now, from a really young age, Shivaji was captivated by this one radical idea, a concept that would basically define his entire life: Swarajya. It translates to self-rule, and you gotta understand, in an age of empires, this was more than just wanting some land. It was a revolutionary vision for an independent Maratha kingdom, a sovereign state for his people, totally free from the orders of distant emperors. Okay, but having a vision is one thing. Actually making it happen when you're up against these vastly superior forces, that's something else entirely. So how did this young leader take on opponents who just massively outnumbered him? Well, he used tactics that left them completely stunned. Just look at the sheer imbalance here. On one side, the Sultanate of Bijapur sends their absolute best, Afzal Khan, a veteran general with a huge conventional army. We're talking heavy cavalry, artillery, the whole shebang. And on the other side, you've got Shivaji, this rebel leader with a much smaller, more agile force that has to rely on guerrilla tactics and the local terrain. I mean, on paper, this was a total mismatch. It shouldn't even have been a contest. But Shivaji never, ever fought on paper. He turned the geography itself into a weapon. He lures Khan's huge army into these dense hills and forests where their numbers actually became a problem for them. Then he agrees to a personal meeting, a massive risk. But of course, he came prepared. He had hidden armor under his clothes and a wagnak, this concealable weapon that's like a tiger's claw. So when Khan made his move and tried to kill him, Shivaji was faster. He struck first, mortally wounding the general, and that was the signal. His hidden troops swarmed the now leaderless army. It was an absolutely legendary, shocking victory. Okay, so defeating a Bijapuri general was one thing, but with that victory, Shivaji had just poked the real bear. The Mughal emperor, Aurangzeb, sent his own uncle, Shaista Khan, a really powerful noble and general, to just crush this rebellion once and for all. The stakes were now way, way higher. So Shaista Khan marches in, captures the city of Pune, and in a total power move, sets up his headquarters in the very palace where Shivaji grew up. Shivaji's response? Oh, it was personal, and it was unbelievably audacious. He planned a daring night raid, a stealth attack right into the heart of an enemy camp that was filled with tens of thousands of soldiers. And the outcome was just shocking. Disguised as a wedding party, Shivaji and a small team of commandos slipped right past the guards. They found the general's quarters and attacked him right there in his bed. Now, Shaista Khan managed to escape, but he lost 3 fingers in the chaos. The physical wound was pretty minor, but the psychological blow, it was immense. The Mughals were publicly humiliated. This raid proved, without a doubt, that Shivaji's greatest weapon wasn't his army, it was his ingenuity. You can't just keep embarrassing an emperor like that and expect no consequences. Emperor Aurangzeb, finally realizing he was dealing with someone much more than a common rebel, decided to switch up his tactics. He invited Shivaji to his imperial court in Agra, hundreds of miles away from his home turf. This quote, it just perfectly captures the attitude of the Mughal court. I mean, despite all his incredible victories, Shivaji was still seen with contempt, like a pest, a mountain rat that needed to be dealt with. So when he showed up in Agra, he wasn't treated like a visiting king. No, he was publicly insulted and disrespected by the emperor. Feeling totally betrayed, Shivaji protested, which led to his immediate house arrest. Just like that, he was a prisoner deep in enemy territory. But even trapped in a cage, his mind was racing. He came up with this brilliant plan. He pretended to be sick and started sending out these huge baskets of sweets to the poor every single day. And pretty soon the guards just got used to it. They didn't even check them anymore. Then, one day in August of 1666, Shivaji and his young son hid inside two of those baskets and were carried right out the front door. What followed was this epic, disguised journey home, proving again that he could turn absolutely any situation to his advantage. So, after escaping from the emperor's own prison and returning as a hero, Shivaji had proven he couldn't be defeated. It was time to legitimize his decades-long struggle. It was finally time to make his kingdom official. The year was 1674. After years and years of relentless warfare, brilliant strategy, and incredible sacrifice, the vision of Swaraja was about to become a formal, recognized reality. High up in his mountain fortress of Raigad, Shivaji was crowned Chhatrapati, a title that means sovereign monarch. This coronation was a massive event. It formally established the Maratha Empire, and it was a declaration to the entire world, especially to the Mughals, that a new, independent power had officially risen in the Deccan. Shivaji passed away in 1680, but the kingdom he built, that would endure. So let's wrap this up by looking at the lasting impact of his reign, because his legacy goes far, far beyond the battlefield. I mean, his legacy is just multifaceted. He's often called the father of the Indian Navy because he understood that to be truly sovereign, you had to control your own coastline. His guerrilla tactics literally became a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. But his vision went way beyond just the military. He was a brilliant administrator who introduced these revenue reforms that actually tied taxes to crop yields. Think about that. It protected farmers from ruin during droughts, a seriously progressive idea for his time. In every single sense, he was the ultimate champion of Swaraja, an enduring symbol of self-rule, courage, and pride, known for his respect for all religions. And as his biographer points out here, the principles he stood for, courage, strategy, justice, and that relentless pursuit of an ideal against all odds, they're still incredibly relevant today. His story isn't just a piece of history, it's a timeless lesson in what true leadership looks like. And so the story of Chhatrapati Shivaji really leaves us with this powerful question. It shows us that history isn't always written by the biggest empires with the biggest armies. Sometimes it's forged by the sheer will and the vision of one extraordinary individual who dares to challenge the giants.